For those who don't know me, I'm Daryl. You may have seen me before in such Academy Award-winning shows like How Hot Is Your Box? Or Death by PowerPoint. I was glad Rob reminded me at 4 o'clock yesterday that I was doing this presentation, because I had no idea. I built these panels last year, had them up and running, worked fine. One day they stopped. So I got up on the top of the ladder and cut open the panel, and I'm like, this smells of smoke. This can't be good. Anyway, turns out my little Raywu DC-DC converter had decided that instead of outputting 5 volts, it's going to output 8 or 9 or 10 volts or whatever it put out, and smoked the whole lot. So I'd used quite a few of these DC-DC converters in my show, and all the others had gone all right. But it was an interesting reminder of the risks of using cheap power stuff. Sometimes it's not just going to blow itself up, it might blow up everything downstream of it. So I think the lessons that I learned are probably around making sure the DC-DC converter doesn't get too hot, because it was enclosed in this plastic thing, and I was probably running at too high a load. So that was an expensive lesson to learn.
So what's the difference between the two P5s?
Well, there are some obvious differences and there are some subtle differences. And the subtle differences you may not be able to work out by looking at them. Okay, so the first lot that came around, the bigger ones, the P10s, what are the differences? Anyone want to yell out some differences? Sorry?
One says RGB, one doesn't.
Okay, yep. Okay, I'll give you some background. These were both bought from Raywu by different people in this room with the same link on AliExpress, the same part number, the same price, the same specifications. One works for what we do, one doesn't.
8 scan, 16 scan?
Both 8 scan according to the back of the panels.
Is it lying there?
That is the question.
I bought 10 last year and none of them worked.
Well, one of these is yours, Ron.
They sent me 10 new ones.
Well, that's lucky. What about the second set going around?
Well, they even say the same serial number or what it was, same version number on the second set, and yet they're clearly different boards.
So these next ones coming around, they're P5 panels. So they're basically 4 times the number of lights as the other ones. So what differences did we see in these?
Different thickness.
Yep.
Size of pictures. Colours.
Yep.
They were the same part number for Raywu too.
Yep, you're right actually. Same part number from Raywu, same cost. I ordered both of these from Raywu 2 months apart, thinking, oh yeah, can use these to expand this lot. Once again, one works for what we want and one doesn't. One is 8 scan, one is 16 scan. My point is that there are so many different types of panels, and the way that we're driving them off of the Beagle bones with the octo scrollers can only work with 8 scan panels that really are 8 scan panels. Ray is not a big panel house. He only has a couple of different part numbers of panels, and he just goes out and buys whatever he thinks is the same to satisfy the order. Based on my experiences, I won't be ordering panels from Ray again. The other difference in these is that the LEDs are much smaller than the other panel, which means you're getting a more inferior product. So, as well as different scan rates and different scan rates, different pitches, different sizes of panels, you can also get waterproof and non-waterproof panels. The one with white, which I'll hand around in a minute, is actually a waterproof panel. Well, it was. Now that I've taken the screws out of it, when I put it back together, it won't be so waterproof. But essentially, and there's the normal one that we use from Ray, the $11 one, is the other one going around. Now, they're only waterproof from the front, obviously. They're not designed to be waterproof from the back. And the waterproof one comes with a gasket so that you can put the panel onto a board and have the whole thing of it out in the rain. These panels are essentially what big scoreboards or big televisions at the cricket or the stadium are made out of. And we are starting to abuse the intended purpose and use them for Christmas lights. And there's nothing wrong with that. We just need to be careful that we're getting what we need for the purpose we need.
So have you found a decent supplier then, if not Ray?
There are plenty of decent suppliers. Like everything else, you can go on AliExpress and you can find 10 different suppliers. But what you're looking for is a supplier that has lots of the different combinations and also technical specs that aren't contradicting themselves. So, saying 16 scan at the top and 8 scan at the bottom. And so in this case, that white one I bought off of someone that actually appears to manufacture their own panels. And therefore, they actually know the differences and don't send you something completely different and think it was the same because it looked similar. Because even if you look at the waterproof versus the non-waterproof ones, other than the gasket at the back, from the front, they pretty much look the same. And waterproofing these things is quite a big challenge. You see the panel display I've got over here on the floor, that's pretty much completely wrapped in plastic. So the other half of what I want to talk about, I wanted to show you a demonstration between two different scan rates, but unfortunately I can't get it to work today.
Harold, before you go on, you're saying that it's critical to order. What are the specs you should actually be looking for then?
You're pretty much looking for 1/8 scan. And then you can choose your size. Most people are using 32 wide, 16 high panels. They all tend to be 5 volt. So that's more or less what you need when you're trying to drive them off of a beagle bone using Falcon Player, which is the way we're driving them in this hobby at this point in time. What I'm interested. There is no guarantee. I mean, Ron has shown that Ray, if he sends you something else, in Ron's case, Ray sent the right thing later. There's no guarantees with that sort of stuff. So I think.
Do you recommend buy your panels from?
Well, look, if you want standard P10 indoor panels, then I'd say Ray's a reasonable bet. Because other than Ron's experience, on the P10 panels, I've not heard of bad experiences. On the P5s, based on my own experience, I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to recommend anyone in particular because I don't actually have any panels out of a different supplier that actually work with the Beagle Bone Octo Scroller, which is what everyone wants to use. I've been buying panels to look at driving in a different way. So what I'm trying to do is work out how can we drive these different types of panels and still get E131 into them, still use them with X lights and that sort of thing. So I've been playing, and my motivation for this is that 1/8 scan rate to me looks a bit flickery. So I'm looking for quarter scan rate, which is less flickery. And so the Octo Scroller isn't capable of driving that, and so I'm looking for alternatives. So the way that these panels are used in stadiums and so on is they have a little controller. I mean, it looks a bit like an Octo Scroller with the panels, and then that has an Ethernet run back to another card, and the other card takes in a standard video input, like an HDMI or a DVI, and that's essentially how they drive these big screens. The challenge for us is that we don't have anything that puts out HDMI or DVI or whatever in a way that this can interpret and put on the screen. So I've been trying to teach Falcon Player how to do that. The advantage in doing it that way is, whilst it's not quite as it's not as cost effective, but the advantages are, well, then we can use almost any type of panel that's ever produced, because we're using the actual commercial hardware and software to drive the panels. The commercial software, which is free, has all sorts of functionality that Falcon Player doesn't, and I dare say won't ever have. You know, with this software, you can take a photo of your matrix, and it can look at the photo or video or whatever and determine, is one panel a different color variation to the other panel, and then adjust itself to try and make everything line up nicely. It's quite complex stuff. But if we looked back 12 months ago, and when I was first showing panels around the Mini driven by the Octoscholar, that was quite complex stuff at that point in time. I mean, I'm not saying it's simple now, but a lot of people have done it, including people in this room. And the community has made the software work and available and easy enough to do with enough instructions around the place. So maybe I'll be standing up here next year saying that this new way of driving them is suitable for everyone. I don't know. The other motivation I have for looking into this is I had some reliability problems with the Beaglebone and Octoscholar last year, which pretty much no one else had, but it cost me a lot of time and was really frustrating. So that's... I think so. Yeah. But I'm not going to... Yeah.
As soon as it just got too hot, it just wouldn't even boot.
Right.
Had to resize the power about 5-10 times and then finally booted up.
So, I mean, over there against the wall, Alec has a panel, or two panels together, which are examples of P6 panels, 1/8 scan rate, indoor panels. So you can, and you'll notice the effect is quite different with the 4 times pixel density. So I think this year you'll see a lot more people using P6, P5, P whatever. But there's nothing wrong with P10s. It's all about the viewing distance. You know, if you're standing a metre from a P10, it's not going to look very good. But if you're standing 5 or 10 metres, then it can be acceptable. And I would use P10s in my show again. I would just prefer to have outdoor ones if I can get them, and ideally a better scan rate. But if I can't get a better scan rate, then I'll try and get outdoor ones that can work with Octoscholars and Beaglebones.
They said the outdoor one's got a little edge on the top of it, is it?
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
It's the sun,
Right.
apparently.
So which way up does it go?
Shade at the top.
Right.
South Australia might be. Queensland's got sun. Yeah, that's got it on there.
Come away on the sun.
Apparently if you put them the other way, you can't see them, it affects the viewing angle.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. That locks in the direction you have to mount them.
I was talking about, I've never seen it before. They mentioned it, I thought that's attractive.
Can you take that cover off and rotate it then?
Actually, you can. You can take the covers off and rotate them, but then you've got to reseal the screw holes because the screw holes penetrate through. And it's, you know what? Taking that cover off probably took me 10 minutes in undoing screws.
So have you tried the waterproof, or would you trust them?
I would, because they're designed and marketed for that. Thanks.
See, the leads are
But so you're relying on getting that gasket just right and all your holes right and everything too, whatever you think.
Sure. So I thought that would be interesting to show today briefly.
How much nearer is the...
Oh, so this panel in my left hand was like, it's actually also one that I blew up if anyone looked at the back. This was $11 US from Ray. This was like $9.80 or something from someone else on AliExpress. So it doesn't have to cost you more, but this one is double the scan rate, so therefore can't work with the Beaglebone and Octoscholar. But I've no doubt you can get this version in outdoor with just by searching for it. But Ray does not sell them.
L10s?
Yeah, these are all these two are 10s. you can get 6s and 5s and all that in this same sort of differential. It's just none of us had bothered to research into that until this year. So for me, this is the clear winner going forward. It opens up so many more mounting opportunities. But there's nothing wrong with this. And if you already have these, keep using them. And if you bought these and haven't built them yet, I would still build them.
Can you see any way that the sun will damage them?
I don't know. Well, Ron had his... Got a bit hot, a bit melty. I guess it comes down to the quality of the plastic. And also, I guess that if you're trying to use indoor ones outdoors, then potentially the quality of the plastic is not designed for that. And also, enclosing them in plastic, or however you're waterproofing, is probably not helping either. Because, I mean, we saw I13s talk about how much heat, or effectively how much wasted power there is from LEDs. I imagine these are going to be similar in that the LEDs are going to waste 50% of their power.
The fact that it's an 8 scan probably overcomes that.
Well, 1/8 scan would help, right? Because each LED's only on 1/8 of the time.
Yeah,
But
which
is it gonna...
means they can run them at a higher current without blowing them up
Right.
momentarily. So there's probably the electronics takes care of that, is what I'm suggesting.
Sure. So obviously quarter
Well, it's
scan...
still going to get warm though, because they're generating.
Yeah, and quarter scan is going to use more power and produce more heat, presumably.
Or possibly. It depends on how smart the electronics is.
What do they call 3 amps a panel, 1 amp a panel?
Because I think they actually use current drivers to drive the columns. So it's it is current limited rather than voltage dropped in a resistor.
So I measured these two last night briefly. I wouldn't say it was an awesomely scientific experiment because there were some other variables, but these two did seem to draw both about 1.2 amps at 5 volt, full load. Well, this one had like a board around the edge that wasn't running, but that wasn't what I expected to see. I did expect to see the quarter scan use more. Certainly, yeah. Certainly there was a lot less flicker. The quarter scan I couldn't see flickering at all with my eyes. Certainly with a video camera you probably still would see flickering. Like if anyone's tried to take a video of an 1/8 scan, it's very obvious that there's a scan rate going on.
So the waterproof ones, you could use water cooled then, couldn't you?
Sorry? Oh, water cool the waterproof ones? Sure, if you wanted to fuse the light.
For the waterproof ones, sorry, Daryl, if I missed it, the waterproof ones, what's it actually rated at? The IP?
I wouldn't trust anything they put on there. They are designed to be outdoors in this application, so I would expect them to be pretty damn waterproof. But your mileage may vary, and certainly looking at the quality of the waterproofing, seems all right.
My concern is you'd have to make sure your back's sealed properly.
Well,
The alternative is
not
to...
having built a panel, I saw somebody else's at another Mini, and the back wasn't enclosed at all. They had the plastic went up the front, over the top and down about that far.
Yeah.
The thing was, they go up under the eaves.
Yeah, well, that's it.
And then they get wet, and I thought, okay.
You get better ventilation that way too.
And they work, they still work.
I mean, moisture in the air will be an issue eventually, but not in the first couple of years, you wouldn't imagine, as long as it's not out all year.
You'd be sick of them after a couple of years and move on.
Well, there is that too.
Or you sell the Mini.
Have you bought yet, Rob?
I'll wait for your panel presentation first. So what's the limitation on the Beagle Bone and the Octo controller? Are you running out of pins to run it quarter scan?
I don't know. I don't know what the limitation is. I'm not that much of an electronic guy. All I know is they only do 8 scan. Like they were.
Brad, I think,
Yep.
Queensland, wanted to move his panels around in a different layout.
He wanted one that was cut diagonally in half.
He hacked it and got it working, and then Captain Murdoch come in and said, I can do that in a setup file.
No, but Brad actually wanted to put it in a a space that was triangular and actually wanted to remove half the panel.
It's never going to work.
Well, I said just start with one corner and keep going until it stops working, and then don't cut the next one as far. I don't think he liked that answer too much, but that's how I would do it.
Yeah, but he actually defined them as a triangle. He just didn't like the price.
Right, well, there you go then. And also, they're probably not 1/8 scan.
I think it's interesting that the software will support them in anything, other layouts.
Yeah.
Rather than having just a rectangle.
The Falcon Player software in general is extremely flexible. It's the GUI that's not flexible at all.
Yes, that's what
So they have been rewriting a new GUI that was expected out for last Christmas. Apparently they're expecting it out for this Christmas. But there doesn't seem to be any development on it at the moment. But there is a lot of plans beyond that GUI. There are already Xlights is generating universe configuration files for the Falcon Player. There's just no API to be able to upload them yet. So they're looking at doing a lot more hooks between Xlights and the Falcon Player to try and remove all the duplicate setup items. Because if you're like me, you want to use Xlights and you want to test your elements with Xlights, and then you want to go use Falcon Player to display your show. There's a lot of duplicate entry. Anyway, that's about all I had to say about panels, unless anyone would like to ask any questions. I know I didn't go into any detail about the basics.
I presume that with the waterproof ones, you've still got to waterproof the back.
Well, you've got to shield the back from water. I don't think you necessarily have to waterproof it. As Shane was saying, if it's under the eaves or something, or even if it's got a hood over it or whatever. The reason I encased this whole thing in plastic was mainly for the front, not so much for the back. But once you've done it for the front, you might as well just tie it up at the back.
It sort of depends on where you're going to hang it. If you can hang it
does.
on a fence where they can get to both sides, then obviously you've got to waterproof both sides.
Well, you've got to protect both sides. You know, even with that as it is, it was sitting on the roof, and if rain had come in at the right angle and bounced back up off the roof up, it could have got into it. It wasn't airtight. Okay, thanks guys.